Hello and welcome. My name is Jody Lynn Craven, founder of Abundance Consciousness, and this is my dear friend, Heather Marie.
Hi, I'm Heather Marie, founder of Soulgate. Welcome to Channel Squared, where we have extraordinary channel conversations about everyday life topics. Every week, we choose a topic, connect with you, the divine, and our guides, and then channel here with you live.
Yes. Apologizing for the delay. I'm still on vacation time. Last week I was gone and we're still in vacation mode a little bit, but we've got an amazing episode for you guys today. Today we're talking all about conCERNed about timelines. So we're jumping into timelines once again. We're answering questions on how they work, how they're altered, how CERN plays a role, what is CERN anyway, and so much more. Oh, I'm so excited for this topic. How about you, Heather?
Yeah, I think it'll be a really interesting topic, especially considering neither one of us know anything about CERN.
100%. Yes. The limited knowledge that I have of CERN was that, at some point it was turned on, I think 2012, monkeyed with some timelines, and then it was just turned on about a month ago. But what's interesting about that is when CERN came back into our, frame of reference, purview, whatever, like it showed up again, you and I had started talking about it and you were looking at pictures. And this is something that we had channeled on, not knowing it, about 3 years ago or 2 years ago, somewhere in there. So interesting how a piece of information we were given a long time ago is coming back full circle.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, back then when we were talking about it and we channeled on it back then, it was about, we were thinking it had something to do with like energy and like, maybe like free energy or how, the energy, is happening for our world. And so, it was a different context that this came up in. And it's so fascinating how now we're like, oh, that's incredible, right? Because I think that sometimes when channels or psychics or what have you, when they start like seeing things coming up, so many times people want to jump to the conclusion that it's happening right now, that like, oh, this is going to happen like today or tomorrow or this month or whatever. But sometimes the information that's received doesn't show up for years later. And so I really think that that's something to like note, that, the stuff that we channel today, maybe it won't happen next week or a month from now, but it will eventually show up if we continue our current trajectory. And so,
yeah.
yeah.
And that's an important distinguisher or disclaimer there as well, is that if we change timelines or trajectories or something changes, whatever we have channeled based on right now's timeline may not be applicable. In the future. That's the interesting thing. What's also interesting, Heather, is that we didn't know when we were doing this channeling, 2 or 3 years ago, and this stuff came up, you were just given a picture of what it looks like. And we didn't know what it was. Again, you said, we thought it was something to do with free energy, and we were getting all sorts of information about Atlantis and whatever, never really pieced it together, kind of put that piece down. And then when I brought up CERN again, a month ago, you looked up the picture and were like, oh my goodness, that's exactly what I saw.
Yeah, exactly. And, it's funny because like, I was really shocked that that was what I saw. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the thing that I saw. Remember when we did the thing? And you were like, oh yeah. So yeah, it was really exciting.
Yeah,
It's always
absolutely.
nice to get the like validation that, something that you saw or something that you experienced is real.
Yep.
I mean, even, us being, experienced channels, it's nice to get the validation. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's
100%.
sweet.
Yes. And can be a little bit like scary, if you're channeling future timelines, what's going to happen. And then things are kind of like check, check, check. You're seeing it happen in real life. It's like, it's like this exciting, exhilarating, and also a little nerve-wracking feeling sometimes, depending on what you're channeling. So let's dive in today. We're already getting questions about what is CERN. If you don't know, that's okay. It's so interesting because, you know, even you and I, Heather, are, you know, enveloped in the spiritual community, but know different things. And it just because you don't know doesn't mean that it doesn't mean anything. It's just a new piece of information that is being brought to light now for a reason. So CERN, what is it?
So, okay, like from from what I understand, on a very quick Google search, like literally just now as we were talking, because I didn't want to come into this with any real knowledge about what it actually is. But it's basically a large hadron collider, a large hadron collider. There it is. I do not know still what that means. My understanding though, okay, so what they're talking about is it's a particle accelerator. Yes, it's a particle accelerator. So, God, where do I even start? I'm like, give me the words. So what they're saying is that basically, okay, when you think about matter or all that is, energy, matter, everything is made up of like particle, right? And this could be energetic particle, this could be physical particle, or like matter particle. And again, we are not scientists, people. So like, bear with us here. So what they're saying is that what it does is it causes the particles to speed up. And so as we know, energy, and that relates to the universe loves speed. So when you are creating something, you are speeding up the particles of the energy of the manifestation that you're trying to create, right? Or you're trying to bring into your experience, and you're speeding this up. And so through this speed, you are calling this and creating this into matter before your eyes. Did I get that right? Yes. So how does CERN relate to this conversation? Okay, so what they're saying is that CERN is a man-made particle accelerator, that the original origin of this type of science or energy is from the Atlantean era. They're saying that it was brought in at that time to create energy, that it was used. Oh, wow. Isn't that interesting? To create energy. So it is about energy.
It is about energy. Interesting. And as you were talking, and you can verify this for me, but my guides were talking about the technology. It's not from this plane. It wasn't like thought up in Atlantis by some being that was there. It is from a different, I get no when I say galaxy, but another place. I'm not really sure where, but
yeah. So what they're saying is that, you know, when this was first brought in, it was brought in to bring in energy into that timeline, because there was still no real energetic source like how we know it today, like, you know, lights and, you know, stuff like that, electricity. But what happened is it came in, and it came into like the light workers and healers and like spiritual beings of that time, the ones that were like talking to the gods and like bringing in these new developments, inventions, so to speak. So what happened is it seems as though this technology was like brought in, and as it was being like worked with and manipulated, it created an explosion of sorts. And this explosion is what sort of like split, um it split, it split everything. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Help me out here, Jody.
It created a separation.
Yes.
And the question that I have is this separation also the separation that we saw when Atlantis split into Lumeria and Atlantis? And I get a yes. That's right after this. That is what happened. And my understanding of that, and I'll let them kind of fill in the blanks, is that there was almost a separation of ideology, the way that people wanted to live. And I don't know that it was like in Lumeria, no polarity or anything. They're saying no. It was just separation of ideology and how they wanted to live and be, essentially, and that's where the separation came from. But this collider, they're like, yes, hydron collider, it like exasperated the separation, like made it bigger. Yeah, it was the lead up to this separation. Then I was asking, Heather was saying there was an explosion. So was it a physical explosion? Was it like an explosion of feeling? Like, what kind of explosion are we dealing with? And I'm getting both. One before the other. So perhaps it was the feelings, and that created this separation in the culture or the societies between the two. They're saying yes. And then after that, there was a physical experience that happened.
Yeah, I definitely get the split. I definitely get the split, and I definitely get the almost like the ending of a civilization. And so when I'm looking at this, it's like I'm getting the imagery of like there was this split, and I think it's so interesting that we're having this conversation today, and there's such a separation of the way people live, right? Like we're experiencing this in our current timeline. It makes me wonder, why is this coming full circle? I mean, here we had the Atlantean people who were completely removed from the face of the earth by the very technology that we have awakened today. And it's just very interesting. It's just very interesting that it was this definite separation, and that and then as a result of this energy coming in and the separation, that an entire civilization ceases to exist. So that's just it just blew my own mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I never, until this moment, I never thought about the separation of the society, like the separation of people, ideologically, or however you want to phrase it, and how that's being mirrored in today's timeline. That's really mind blowing. So I have further questions, like what I love how that we're just channeling this conversation, and everybody that's watching, please take all of this with a grain of salt, feel into it, find the truth that fits for you, and move forward. If you don't like what we're saying, then just leave it, put it down. If you like it, great, move forward with it. We're just channeling all this information so you can see it, live. This is how Heather and I just have conversations as we check out what's going on out there. But my question, it was, was it physically the turning on of said technology? Because I get that there's a difference in technology, that what they had back then is maybe the same idea, but not the same physical structure as what CERN is today. You get that too?
Yeah, yeah, I get that. It's also that like back then, this technology was channeled through physical beings as opposed to a machine that is creating the same energy. And that the beings of that time, these were like very powerful spiritual like leaders in the community. Like these were almost like gods in the physical. So like we're talking really powerful, like, you know, maybe like priests or healers or, you know, like witches, right? Like these type of people, really powerful spiritual beings. And that the energy was like channeled through them and then like out through their hands, like it was like this, as opposed to a, I don't know, when I see this CERN device, it looks like this long tube, you know, and but like a big tube, like people could get inside of it big. But like it's almost like if I, and again, I do not know what CERN looks like. What I'm just seeing is what they're showing me. They're showing me like this kind of long cylindrical, I want to call it a tube, and they're showing it like underground, and it's big. It's quite long, actually. It's not like just like a little time capsule type thing. It's this a very large device. But what they're showing me is it's like this generation is happening inside of this tube and it's like projecting it like out. And so what they're showing me is like this generation and the projecting out, where they're showing me back in this other timeline, it was like generating here, coming in, and then being pushed out by physical beings, which to me, they're showing me like a circle of these people, these you know, godlike humans, spiritual beings in a circle together, bringing that force together to create this and then shooting it out. And so what this CERN tube device is doing is it's creating that circle and that energy creation and then shooting it out, where back then it was actual physical humans bringing the energy in, and then them coming together created this energy and then shooting it out. Wow.
Okay. So I think, you know, Vicky asked a question, how does it relate to today's situation? I feel like we need to go back. And so there was a separation in the people, and then this technology eventually destroyed Atlantis, is what we're hearing here. They're like, yes. But what was it? Was it the use of this technology, or was it something they were trying to achieve with the technology that did it? What happened? It's a good question.
So I feel like, so what I'm getting is back then, when they were using this technology, the technology was brought to them to bring them energy, to make their life easier. But these like spiritual godlike humans, they could see the power in it. And in using this power, it was like they didn't use it for what it was intended for. It was almost as if they were using this for like to show that they were gods, you know, that they were able to manipulate and transform this light energy into something like powerful and to put it on display. And so by them doing this, it essentially like blew the place up. There was the explosion. But that's not what the intention was. And so they're saying that how this relates to today's situation is that this technology has come back in again. And it's come in again um, two other like fellow light workers that are here to bring energy to the people. The thing is that, and they're showing me kind of like a 1950s timeline that this kind of like was invented or sort of started. But they're showing me that, you know, back in 2012, which is the time that, you know, we would remember, that this energy was then corrupted by, again, this power hungry, like, demonstration of power, and that it was shut down because it caused a problem. Well, at least they figured that out. But now, as it is today, what is it now? What do you get?
I put them on mute for a second. I can ask them.
I'd be curious to know what they have to say about it. But
okay, what's the question that you asked specifically?
What does it mean today?
Okay, they're giving me a few things. You go first.
So what I'm getting is that this has the potential to explore other dimensions. And through this, it could be very a beautiful way to prove spirituality is real, right? It's an opportunity for the science community to understand and relate some way to the unseen. However, in the wrong hands, this can wipe out other galaxies, dimensions, beings, us. Like, it could be disastrous all the way around. But the intention behind bringing this new technology in was, or new technology in, was to assist the ascension from a scientific perspective, so that science could finally realize what intuitive people already knew.
So what I got on the let's say light side was everything that you had said, and that a new, think about how powerful this is, how powerful the understanding is, the possibility that it truly opens up. Seeing this, like seeing what you saw from Atlantis, beings doing this, and then having a machine essentially that does this, it changes, the words that they give me is, it changes the game, like how we play life, how we create what is actually possible. And going towards that trajectory just really opens up the mind to everything that, you know, spiritual healers and teachers talk about, this unseen. And then on the other side of things, it was a deeper segregation of people and potentially fighting, because the intention is coming from a darker place, instead of, you know, the I am powerful and being standing in your sovereign power, if you will, versus I want to take everybody else's power and I want to keep this power for myself. That's the split that I'm seeing. And it's they're giving me more information on, it could be disguised as it's too powerful for the lay person to understand or play with, like almost like you're a child, you can't cook. Hot stove, stay away. And that wasn't the intention. It was the intention to bring the power back to the individual, and how powerful we as individuals are in the creation process and in the process of creating the world that we see before us.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Wow. Okay. So this technology was created to prove spirituality.
Right. On a scientific level.
On a scientific level.
Mm-hmm.
All
I
right.
mean, the thing that they're showing me is that they're bringing the information about human conception. So they're relating this to human conception in the way that, egg and sperm meet, and there is a like zinc spark that occurs. And that zinc spark is what accelerates the particles into splitting and creating the human form. And so there's really been no way for humans to prove that there are other dimensions, not even through human conception, which is mathematically an impossibility, right? And yet it's interesting that they're actually bringing this up, because they're saying that, it's been in front of you this entire time, but no one has looked at it in this way. And so there needed to be a new way for humans to understand that everything is energy and everything is of light particle. They're saying that this has the potential for humans to understand.
Will this be the lead up to the transition to New Earth?
It could be.
It's very similar to, Atlantis and Lemuria split, New Earth, whatever, old Earth, whichever side, doesn't matter, whatever. And then Atlantis was gone. I don't know whatever happened to Lemuria, or if they both disappeared at that time. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's what's fascinating is when I first started channeling a couple years ago about old Earth plane and new Earth plane, I was seeing it as a split, right? So like the imagery that was coming to me was as a split, and I was feeling like it was like a separation, a split between the two worlds, and as the time has evolved, this split is actually another density, another planet in another density, right? But it's like it's still showing me that split off. And so I think it's really interesting that they're talking about there being a split from, Atlantis and Lemuria splitting and creating two like civilizations basically. And then, there's the explosion. I'm wondering what's happened to Lemuria. I get that Lemuria is still here. It's
So do I.
not on the Earth plane. It's like it broke off and it's its own civilization somewhere else.
Yes, exactly
Does
what you were
anybody,
describing.
yeah, if anybody who's watching right now knows anything about Lemuria, drop it in the chat, because we would love to know what you know about it. I mean, we can channel it, but it would be really fun if you could just tell us.
Yeah. when I look at, when you were describing the two splits, the between, Earth, new Earth, old Earth, whatever you want to call it, and that physical split between the two, I've seen that before. It felt like, it's a physical thing, a physical split. And when you were describing it, it was almost like a mirror of Atlantis and Lemuria as well, that physical split, and that they're still like alive and well.
Yeah. It's fascinating about the little bit that I know about them is more around like crystals, like Lumerian crystals. And,
Mhm.
those crystals carry the energy of the healers that have used them before you. And I had this really crazy experience once where a girl who I'd never met before came for an appointment, and she brought me like 3 or 4 of these Lumerian crystals. And she said that she was on dig site. She was like, that's what she does. She digs crystals and like
Cool.
precious metals and precious stones and whatever. And so she says, I was on my dig site. It's the first time I've ever met this girl. She says, I was on a dig site, and this family comes over to me and they bring me these stones. And they said, we need you to have these because you're going to meet someone who these belong to, and we need you to get them to this person. And she says, well, how will I know? And they said, you'll just know. And they said, but you're going to meet her very soon. And so the very first time she met me, she brought the crystals because she wanted to make sure she had them, because she took them everywhere she went in case she ran into that person. And then when we got done with the appointment, she says, I have something for you. And she hands me this little purple box, and she says, these were used by a healer for over 60 years, and they belong to you. And I was like, okay, thank you. Weird girl with the crystals. And so I didn't connect to them right away because I'm very particular about what gets in my energy. And so for probably a solid year, they sat in the box, and I didn't even open the box. And when I opened the box, there was a little story about the generation of healers that had utilized these crystals. And I could feel the ancient healing like power that was in them. And it's so fascinating because, and the reason I'm bringing up this long-winded story about these crystals is that when we had the conversation about the energy thing that we had talked about 2-3 years ago, I had gone to those crystals that same day and pulled them out, and one of them was broken in two. And I thought that was super interesting. And with this earlier today, when we were talking about this topic, like I was like, there's something else about this. And as we were preparing, and just before we jumped on, those crystals came into my mind, and I got tell the story about the crystals. So I wonder if this is going to be something, if this is going to, what if this is the catalyst that launches us to new Earth plane? Whoa.
Whoa. Yeah, no kidding. I just get, when I ask that question, it's all like cheeky smiles. They will not confirm or deny, but they're just smiling. So I
I
think we're
mean,
on the
because
same track.
if you think about it, this is me talking, not listening to them right now, but just me. If you think about how that went down for, for the split and the explosion, did the Atlantean people even see it coming? And if they didn't see it coming, were they was it like a blink and they were gone? And then in that same blink, the Lumerians were launched into their new experience. it seems so easy, the transition.
I get a yes. And, it's super interesting because my guides keep asking me to bring this up. And I am leery about it, but we're talking about free energy. So, and somebody asked in the comments, there's some that want us to have, free energy and, all of that stuff. There's a documentary that you and I watched that talked about free energy and these structures. And so when we started talking about energy today, they brought forward those structures, and they are structures that live within our society today. These giant churches, they weren't stained glass windows before they were energy generators. These giant organs it was the combination of sound and water. Underneath these big churches, there was water caverns that held water. There's these beautiful ponds and stuff like that that held water, these big organs, these big horseshoe gables, or I don't even know what they would be called. All of these things were a part of the free energy system, according to this this documentary that we're watching. And they were bringing all of this up. And in terms of the split, what they were showing me is like, it looks like what would be the Lumerians started to build these structures out to have physical structures that could be utilized by everyone. And they're saying yes, because not everybody had that healing ability. Those people in the circle, they didn't believe that they could, so they began to create these structures. I wonder if the most magnificent structures that we have on our plane, or our earth plane today, were actually built during this period and not when we think they were actually built. I get confirmation of that. I'd love to hear what you have to say about that. And that when talking about the split, the question that you asked, was it very quick? I get a yes and a no, that they didn't know what was going to happen. Like the two splitting planes, like this one no longer existing, and it going underneath the ocean or wherever it went. I'm not really sure. They didn't know that was happening, but you could tell within society, the directions we were just going so far from one another, those two civilizations. And that took some time, is what I receive. But the actual physical was quite quick.
Yeah, I get that too. I get that they never saw it coming. And I get that they that split did like progress over a time period. I don't get that it was like a really super long time period. And when I say that, I mean like, it wasn't like 100 years. Like,
Yeah,
I
no.
think that's a long time period, but I feel like it was much shorter than that. It was shorter than like a generation.
Yeah.
And I get that it was like when the like explosion occurred that they didn't see it coming, and two, nobody suffered. It was just a clean and it just occurred.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. What a wild conversation we're having today.
I know all of this. It's so interesting because there's been different points where we've received information. The first time that we were channeling about this, the documentary that we watched, like there's just all of these pieces that made zero sense. Very cool to learn about at the time. And we were led to them for a reason. And we just kind of, okay, great. Thanks for the information. Awesome. And continued on our way. And now they're all coming back together. And then the mirror effect of of what is happening now, because I would say that our society is splitting. If not has already split, there's this big split that I feel I'm witnessing as I look out into the world. Very interesting.
And the thing too is that the world splitting the way that it's splitting right now, I feel like there's distinctly ways in how people are living, right? There's people like the shutdowns and all that stuff changed the way that people live. It changed the way that people want to live and how they want to experience their life. And I think it's fascinating that this has so many similarities to the type of split that occurred back then, and that this technology is coming full circle. And I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is not me channeling, but me just thinking in my head. In 2012, when they turned CERN on, wasn't that because it was the end of the Mayan calendar? Like, I could have sworn there was something. Yeah, I swear it had something to do with the Mayan calendar. So, and if anybody knows, please drop it in the chat. But I think it's really interesting how, at that time, the Mayan calendar was ending, and everybody believed, oh my gosh, this could be the end of the world because it's the end of the Mayan calendar. And the Mayans only, but the question is that true, or is that a cyclical type of calendar and it just happened to go into 2012? Like, now does it restart at the beginning of the Mayan calendar? I don't know. I don't even know, like, if that's a thing, but
it was. You are correct. It was a 2012 phenomenon, and there's a belief that a cataclysmic or transformative event would occur on or around the 21st of December, 2012.
So it kind of makes you wonder about the timelines and about, we're already seeing some things that are changing. Or what do you call that? Mandela effect?
The Mandela effect. Yes. So this was the thing in 2012, when CERN was turned on, there was these Mandela effects. So a Mandela effect is what you remember is not quite what is. So really simple example of this could be the Bernstein Bears or Bernstein Bears. Which is it? And people will remember things differently than what our history records today. And that's showing a different timeline. And Bernstein Bears is actually one of them. I have always thought it was Bernstein, like EIN, I believe it is. And if you Google it right now, Heather and I did this morning, it's Bernstein, STAIN. Which I think I would have remembered that because stain is something funny, hee when you're a kid, like,
totally. You probably want to call that like butt stain.
Yeah.
Oh, did I just say that on?
That's
but
right.
Yeah, totally. You would have way too much fun with that as a kid. I remember it to be Bernstein Bears.
Yes.
Not Bernstein Bears. Now that I feel like that may have been a little bit after my age appropriateness to have that toy. I feel like that toy came along maybe when I was in middle school or something like that.
Yeah, the books.
Yeah. So I think but what was the other one? King Tut.
So in 2012, there was some things that changed, and I don't have tangible examples of that. But after the, CERN machine was turned on and then turned off, there was a bunch of people who noticed Mandela effects. So when they announced that they were going to turn it on a month ago, people were talking about that all over the place. Watch for the Mandela effects. Shortly after they turned it on a month ago, I saw one, and it's kind of disturbing. King Tut. If you think about King Tut right now, right? Like the headdress of King Tut, what would you say is on the headdress, Heather? I don't even know if it's called a headdress, but whatever that piece is, the crown, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a snake.
There's
There's a snake
dead
right
center.
in the middle, right here. Yep.
Dead center. Yeah.
Dead
Look it up.
center.
It's no longer that way. There is a snake and it's just off to the side. And then there is another serpent or some kind. Do
Yeah, like the
not
cobra.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cobra that is the center snake, and it was centered directly like down the middle of his face, like centered in the middle of his forehead, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now, if you look it up, it is off to the side, and there is a serpent next to it. And I'm like, when we talked about this, my head like literally like launched completely off of my shoulders. I couldn't believe it. It's completely crazy. You guys will have to Google that later if you're not already Googling. Google now and get on here and tell us, whoa, because I know you all know that King Tut had the one cobra in the middle of the forehead, right? Like it was in the middle of his headdress and it was in the center. In fact, if you go back and there's probably even some documentaries on National Geographic where it was like that. I would wonder, are they still the same? Or has this effect, happened? And now we are all losing our minds thinking that there was only one cobra, and now there's actually a cobra and a snake.
Yes. So we know that timelines, if you will, just very broad sense of timelines are impacted by CERN because we can see it in these Mandela effects. And something that I had heard before, and I have not channeled on it, so we can channel on it now if we want to, but the first time that CERN was turned on, it was to change the trajectory of where we were going, not from a positive sense. It was from the sense that the light always wins, and the individuals or the beings that took over this technology did not like that. Every scenario that they ran, it was not going to end up the way that they wanted it to. So they had the intention of changing the timeline through CERN to get what they wanted, and it backfired on them. It actually caused the Great Awakening. And so with that in mind, I channeled on the second time it was turned on, and what I got was they were again trying to change the timelines, and that because there had been this mass awakening, it also backfired on them. It didn't work the way that they wanted it to. So I think, and I haven't asked this question, but I think that CERN is in the hands of not so good people, potentially.
Potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what I get on that, I don't know if you're receiving anything. They're like, yes and no. It's almost like there's this other force field, or I don't know if it's individuals or beings or a combination of both that are monitoring it, that have their thumb on it. I get the sense that it's almost like, yeah, we want them to think that they're in control. Yeah, but they're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is definitely supervised is what I'm getting. It's under supervision, and that it's not, they just have a finger on the pulse of what's going on.
Yeah.
I do get that there has already been some backlash. Backlash isn't the right word. Give me the right word. Adverse reaction to them turning it on. And, it's been a wonderful discovery for the scientists that are actually, doing the project, but it has had some adverse results out in the field, out in the quantum field. And so they are managing it because of that. They're like, if Earthlings want to blow themselves up, that's great, but they can't blow up the rest of the universe in the process. Kind of cheeky, tongue-in-cheek way. Yeah.
Well, it was reported that when they turned on CERN, that they destroyed another galaxy or another something.
Oh, wow.
They were like, whoops. Not
our bad.
Yeah.
Oh my God. How horrible. How horrible. Okay.
Right?
Well, so what does this mean for us? Does this mean anything for us, or is this just a fantastic conversation? Go ahead.
Nope. I was just going to say a fun conversation.
I get that right now we don't need to worry about it. They're coming in with this vibration of like peacefulness, like, be peaceful with it. There's nothing. Those that are moving to New Earth plane, they got their ticket in hand. They're just waiting for the ship to show up. They're saying that, there's so much like peace around this, and it's nothing to be afraid of, and there's nothing to feel bad about or uncomfortable with, that everything is going to be absolutely perfect. And they want us to know that they're working very hard to make sure that everything is perfect, because we are imperfect beings that are trying to understand perfection. And they want us to know perfection when we move to that new plane. So they are very excited that we are making these discoveries, and they're very excited. They're very excited that we're having this conversation on such a broad platform with our 70 something subscribers.
That's right. If you guys are enjoying this conversation, make sure you hit that like button and that you are subscribed. We're so close to our own unique link. My guides had chimed in that remember the fact, they're emphasizing the word, the fact that the light always wins in the end. And your experience is determined in this moment, this moment, this moment, this moment. And be mindful to focus on the things that you desire, that excite you, that bring you joy, and that keep you at peace. Have fun. This is an adventure and the great show. It's the reason you're all here.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That is beautiful. So amazing. If you guys have some questions, that was a lot. We went from timelines to energy to Lumerian. Like we covered a lot of ground in, the last almost hour. So if you guys have questions or specific things that you want addressed, please put them in the chat there. We will definitely do it. And if you're watching the replay after this is all over, the live is over, you can add questions there, because we always check those too. So don't forget that. If you have extra questions, we always come back. Yeah. Wow.
Oh, thank you, Vicky. Vicky says, amazing, both of you.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I think the hardest thing about being a channel is receiving, for me anyway, is receiving this kind of information that blows your brain open, right? like we got so much here in this conversation, so much in previous conversations that are now like coming together to make a lot of sense. And it's hard to like keep your butt on the chair. It's almost like you need to buckle up for these things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, sometimes as a channel, like you get truth, right? And when that truth comes in, you tend to look at it and go, how can I like ease into what we're trying to say so that, everybody doesn't go out and like empty their bank accounts and do crazy shit. Right. So, as we receive information and we share with you here on this show, just know that, the information that we receive is as we receive it right now, and that it's based on the current climate. It's based on today, yesterday, it's based on what's occurring in this moment. And that, as a collective, if we move and we make strides to do other things, that information can always change, because we do have free will here. The things that we are meant to experience, we will experience because we said we came here to do that and experience just that. So, I encourage you to, as you're moving through your life, to be mindful that you're experiencing the joy and the pleasure of being on the earth plane, because it truly is like the universe's playground. It's the opportunity to experience everything that the universe has to offer in one particular place. And so, when you hear the things that we channel, take them with a grain of salt. Be like, wow, that's really interesting that this is the information of today. I wonder what it's going to be next year. Because it could very well be entirely different. Or it could be like, oh my gosh, everybody, grabbed your loved ones. Here we go.
Yep, it's time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So beautiful.
Yep.
Wow.
All right. Well, what do we have up for next week? Do we know? Have we decided?
Yes, we do. Standing in your sovereign divinity, as we witness everything that's going on, there are some people here on this plane that were meant to fight, and some people that were meant to watch the great show. We all have different roles in this ascension. And how do you reclaim your sovereign power, sovereign divinity, without going down to that lower vibration? How can you stay high vibe and keep your or fight, if you will, for lack of a better term, for your sovereign divinity?
Ooh, that's going to be a good one.
So good.
We got some good stuff lined up this month. So if you guys have any topics that you want us to cover, just let us know. You can drop them in the chat. You can make a comment if you're watching the replay. You can hit us up on social media, at Channel Squared, all spelled out, and just let us know things that you'd like us to channel on or talk about or whatever, because we are open to talk about pretty much anything. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And
the weirder, the better.
We're open to all things. What do you want to know about? Because we probably want to know too. So make sure that you are you're putting those ideas in there. And before we leave today, I just want to give a quick mention to Heather, your next event, which is called Next, and it's going to be, I believe, in 2 weeks from now, the 31st of August. But that was just released today. So I don't know. You should put the link in the chat bar so those who missed your last event can come to this one. It was absolutely fabulous. I was there. I will be at this one too. I just love watching their trance channel. And, if you have specific questions about your life and what's next for you, this is definitely something that you don't want to miss. So check out that link in there. Amazing. Oh,
Yes.
Victoria says y'all are so amazing. Well, thank you, Victoria. We think you guys are amazing. We appreciate that you come and hang out with us every single week. We apologize we were late this week, but we will be back next week on Tuesday at 1 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Mountain, 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Eastern. Did it. Amazing. Thanks, guys, for watching.